Hey everyone, this is Rachel. Thanks for clicking on my video. And I came in today, y'all, to do a story time. Now, this story time happened years ago when I was a corporate travel agent. I was a travel agent for about 15 years. I did not book like vacation travel or anything like that. I made reservations and booked travel for business travelers. But in doing that job, I myself was able to travel to some very interesting places in the world. Y'all, a lot of times our tickets would be free or very much reduced. We would get free nights at hotels. We would get car rentals, the whole nine. Because when you're in the industry, the reason why they do that is because they believe that if they show you a good time, these hotels, these car companies, and all of that, that you, when you are booking travel for your business travelers, you'll be more likely to book their properties, their car companies, or their airlines. So they would comp us stuff. But on this particular trip, I had taken my ex, as I mentioned, for his birthday. So, when we got there, we did a lot of walking around and sightseeing. We also did bus tours, of the city that we were in. Now, we had planned this one bus tour, but we overslept the day that we were supposed to take the bus tour. So when we got to the area where you were supposed to take the bus was gone. But what happened was there was this older black guy who had a little kind of like van pickup truck kind of sort of thing going on. And he was offering what he called not Mr. Charlie's bus tour. He said if you want a real tour of the city, then you should ride with me. So he was older. We figured, okay, we'll go ahead and give him this business. And it was a couple other black couples there as well, and they got in his little van. So what he did is he started showing us around the city, and he was giving us a tour according to like what a black person would want to know about the city's history and all of that, because everybody that was on that little bus, van, or whatever it was, pickup truck, y'all, that we were on, were black. So at one point he had pulled into this driveway, sort of, kind of. You could tell that it was an old driveway. And outside the driveway, there was this sign, and it told you that this was an old plantation. So we got out and we started looking around, and, we didn't actually walk onto the grounds yet, but, we stood there and listened to him tell us the history before we actually walked on the grounds. So after he had told us, what occurred on that plantation, who lived there, and all of that, we started walking the grounds. Now, y'all, the reason why I wanted to do this video telling you my experience at this plantation is because the moment that we started walking on those grounds, we started feeling a little funny. Now, y'all, I'm the type of person, I believe in everything. I guess I'm very superstitious. I don't know. But I believe in everything. I believe in aliens. I believe in ghosts. I believe in everything. I'm like the lion in the Wizard of Oz, y'all. I do believe in ghosts. I do believe in ghosts. I do. But as we started to walk, and this older guy was telling us the history, the closer I got to the remains of that structure, and the different parts of this plantation, I started feeling like there was a crowd of people behind us. Now remember, I said that when we were on the little bus that we were on, not a bus because it was like a van, there were two other couples, and they were black. So it was only 6 people plus the guy that was showing us around, which made it 7. But we kept feeling like we were being followed, okay? And we were walking along, and my ex said something like, "Do you feel that?" And I said, I wanted him to say it first. I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "I just feel like that we're being followed." Okay? Now, y'all, the following that we felt, it didn't feel scary, but you just felt like, if this makes sense, that you were surrounded. But it wasn't, you didn't feel threatened, okay? So as we walked, I told my ex, I said, I do feel something, because I could feel like goosebumps on my skin. And y'all, it was very hot where we were, so there was no reason for me to have that feeling of goosebumps. So the guy started, walking along and pointing out different things, and he got to this area where it looked like it was an old fire pit. And what he explained to us is that back in slavery days, the plantation that we were on was a sugar plantation, and that they produced a lot of the sugar that made rum back in the day. Um, and he explained how the slaves would have to man this fire all day and produce this sugar. And he talked about how hot it was, and can we imagine what it felt like to have to stand in front of this fire pit as a slave, not getting a break to go somewhere and get something cold to drink, or just to get out of the sun for a little bit, just how it felt. So as we're standing there, my ex grabbed my hand, and because at this point, y'all, we had started feeling almost like our ancestors were there, that they were curious to why we were there, and who were we and where we came from. Now this is some of the things that when me and my ex talked about, that when me and my ex left, we talked about. When we got by ourselves, he was saying it almost felt like they wanted to know why we were there. Who were we? Why were we free? Why were we able to come and go as we felt? That's the feeling that overcame us. So as I was standing there, and the guy was telling us the stories of the slaves that lived on that plantation, y'all, I got very emotional, and I started crying. And my ex put his arms around me, and he was very moved too. He wasn't crying, but you could tell that he was very moved, because this guy that was showing us this plantation was an older gentleman, and he was making it real for us, and it moved us. But what we also felt was that there were slaves there with us, and they were watching us being told the story of their lives. Now, y'all, I know that might sound crazy, but to this day, you cannot convince me that they were not walking with us, and that they were not happy that we were there. All throughout our time on that plantation, as we moved around, we kept feeling like more and more people were coming. Even the other two couples started to say that they felt like they were being followed. Now, when me and my ex, whispered to each other what we felt, we didn't say it loud enough for the other couples to hear, because we didn't want them to think we were crazy. So we were just saying it between ourselves. But we noticed them starting to whisper to each other. And then one of the men from one of the other couples, he had said, "I feel so funny here." And we were like, "What do you mean?" And he said, "It just feels like, that there's somebody here with us." And then we all started saying, "I feel that too." Now, y'all, like I said, this feeling was not a threatening feeling where we should feel scared. It almost felt warm and embracing and happy. It felt like almost that we were walking in a bubble of good feeling. I can't say warmth because where we were at, it was in the south, so it was hot. So warmth is going to be there, but you felt this overwhelming sense of warmth and goodwill towards us. And when I started crying, I felt like someone was standing in front of me. I'll never forget that feeling, y'all. Even as I sit here and talk about it, I felt like someone was standing in front of me trying to understand why I was crying. Oh, y'all, this is bringing back so many memories. I also remember as we were there, we walked into like a very wooded area because our tour guide wanted us to see the different fruits that grew on this plantation and how you could just walk up to it and pick fruit. And he talked about how the slaves would have to go out and get this fruit for their master and have it on the table in the morning and all of that. And he started picking some of the fruit and giving it to us and telling us that we could pick it too, and he wanted us to taste it. So my ex wasn't having no parts of it, child, y'all. He was like, this stuff has not been washed and I'm not eating it. I know bugs been walking all on it. Y'all, I'm a very adventurous person, and I felt like this: if my ancestors could eat it, then I could too. Because that tour guide was telling us how some of those slaves were hungry. They would be beat if they ate some of the fruit that was freely growing on trees, that they walked by daily. And I just felt like if they could go through that, then I could eat a little dirty fruit. It wasn't going to kill me. And all throughout this time on this plantation, y'all, it just brought home what our ancestors went through. When I was walking along there, I was imagining, them there toiling in the heat of the day after day, week after week, year after year, and eventually dying on those plantations, never having a chance to venture out into the world freely like I was there doing. And I believe that those slaves that were there buried on that plantation visited us that day. And I believe that they did it because they were curious, that they wanted to know who we were, where we came from, and what brought us there. So at some point, we were able to walk a little bit away from our little group. And my ex wanted to talk to them because he said that he felt the feeling that they were there, and he wanted them to know how much we appreciated what they went through so that we can be here and have the life that we had. So as we were walking, he just started talking to them. He told them his name. He told them, where we came from. He told them how sorry, he was for what they had to go through. But because of that, that's why we're able to be free and be there today on vacation and, hear the stories of what they endured. And the more he talked, the more that feeling of peace and warmth surrounded us. I'm not going to say, go so far as to say anything touched us or anything supernatural materialized in front of us, because that would be lying. I guess what I'm trying to do is paint a picture of what we felt that day. And to understand myself, these many years after that experience, what we felt that day was real. My thought is this. I believe that as we walked through there with that black tour guide, that older man, that some spirits there heard what he was saying to us, and they felt the need to come forward. They wanted us to know that they appreciated us being there. They wanted us to know that they appreciated us taking the time to listen to their stories. They were curious about us. I just believe that that warm feeling that they kept putting out to us, that embracing feeling was real, that we were now not all part of like a group hypnosis or something. If we were, then we were all experiencing the same thing. Because even when we left there that day and we got back on that little pickup slash van, because y'all, the reason why I keep calling it that is because it was like a van in the front, but in the back it was like a pickup truck. I think this old guy had modified two vehicles, it seemed like, y'all, and made it into one. And he was running his own little tour. So when we got back on that little van, that vehicle, the couple started talking. And what we realized is that we all were feeling the same thing, but we were too embarrassed to share exactly the extent of what we were feeling. Even to one of the guys that was with us, as he was telling us what he felt, tears were in his eyes. And he had to keep like joking and saying that he had allergies and stuff. But he said that basically he was moved and it was going to make him live his life better in honor of what they went through. And you could tell that this black man, what he was saying from that day on, that he was going to change some things in his life because he was so moved by what he felt that day. Y'all, I've never had an experience like that prior to that or after that. So that's why I feel that what I experienced that day was real. The history of this country and what our people went through was very, very sad. The thing is, when we went on that tour, we did not specifically set out to go visit a plantation. It's just that as that older gentleman was giving us a tour of the city, I guess he figured this is one of the sites in the city, and it would be something that us northerners, because I'm from Ohio, I'm from the state that a lot of slaves tried to get to, because freedom was supposed to be there. Freedom is what the slaves wanted, and they were, when they tried to escape, trying to get to Ohio and Canada and places like that so they can get as far away from the South where slavery was legal. They wanted to get someplace where it wasn't. And maybe they heard that guy telling asking us where we came from. And when we said Ohio, maybe something that we said sparked something in them and they heard us. I don't know, y'all, but the ghost of those slaves walked with us through that plantation that day. They were trying to reach out to us, make us feel comfortable in the only home that they had ever known. And even as I said that, y'all, it almost made me cry. They were trying to make us feel comfortable. So those feelings of warmth and that feeling of being embraced. And I don't mean touched physically, because I think if something would have touched me physically, y'all, I probably would have tore up some grass getting off that plantation. But it was just like, I can't even really explain it, but it was a feeling that the land itself was embracing us. I know that sounds weird and I don't have the words for it right now, but if you could just imagine what I'm trying to get across to you, I felt like I was wrapped up in a fluffy, soft blanket, and I was being held by someone but not actually touched. That don't even make sense, but it's the only way that I can describe it. Y'all, the mysteries of the world, and especially this thing with our history, intrigues me. I live in Ohio, where the Underground Railroad is, and there are a lot of sites here that I want to visit. On my way to take my daughter to college, when I used to take her back and forth, we would stop at this rest stop. And one day I was standing waiting for my kids to get, sodas and, some snacks. And I was just standing there, and I happened to walk around the little rest stop, and I noticed this sign. And when I looked up, the sign said that it was a stop, that this area was a stop on the Underground Railroad. And if I remember, when I end the video, I'll insert a picture of my kids standing in front of that sign. Y'all, I'm a big crybaby. And when I started reading the information that was on that sign, I started crying. And my kids were asking me, why was I crying? And I just told them that here we were, a single mother and her, 2 children, on the way to a college that years ago we would not have been able to attend. I was dropping my daughter off at Bowling Green University, and we stumbled upon a place where our ancestors' feet had been, where they had run for safety. And just the thought that a couple hundred years ago, some black person was standing there terrified, trying to get away from probably slave catchers and get to a safe house where they can rest, be fed, and try to figure out what they were going to do, because they were trying to get to freedom. That moved me in ways that I cannot even explain. And it took me back to that time when I was on that plantation. And if it just brought to me further what our ancestors had gone through. It really deepened my understanding of the pain and what they endured. So with that, y'all, this is the end of my video before I start crying. Sometimes in our lives, when we are living with all the creature comforts that we have in this world today, we need to remember that there were people that came before us that did not have what we enjoy today. A lot of us don't want the horrors of slavery to touch us. We don't want to remember what our ancestors went through. For some of us, it's too painful. I am a person that loves history. So I dig for things like this. When I stumble upon something like this, it sparks my interest, and it makes me want to dig even further, visit more places, and get a better understanding of something that I have questions about, that I agonize over. So one day, me and my son, we were talking, and he had told me that he wanted me to tell him the story about my visit to that plantation years ago. So I told him, and he, like me, loves history. So we got to talking about all the places here in Ohio that were stops on the Underground Railroad, and how we wanted to visit those places and then go back south, and visit more plantations. I know that sounds weird, y'all. Why would we want to visit a place that held so much horror for our ancestors? I don't know why I have this thing about me that even though it's painful, I just feel like if my ancestors could endure it, the least I could do is go see, walk the grounds, touch the land, eat the food. So it almost helps me pay homage to them, I guess. And that's why I want to go. I want to satisfy this curiosity that I have. I would also like to go to Africa, and go to that wall or that door of no return and just step my foot on the continent that my ancestors came from. I want to do that before I die, and I want to have that experience. Now, I'm not a travel agent anymore, and travel is not as easy as it once was before me. But if it's left up to me, that is something that I will do before I leave this earth. I just want to step my foot on that continent. It satisfies some deep thing that I have in me, and some of you may not understand that, but it's something that I need. And with that, y'all, this is the end of the video. Thanks as always for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Stay safe out there. Bye bye now.